Hey there, beautiful souls. Have you ever had that moment when your entire world shifts beneath your feet? That instant when everything you thought was true suddenly reveals itself as a beautiful lie? 3 years ago, I was living what I thought was my best life. A loving marriage, two wonderful kids, and the comfortable stability of middle-class contentment. But sometimes, the deepest wounds come from the hands we trusted to hold our hearts. This is my story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, finding my way back to myself. If you've ever felt the sting of deception from someone you loved, this one's for you. I can still remember how it felt, believing my marriage to Emma was perfect. Our life together seemed like a masterpiece we'd carefully crafted. Our 16-year-old son excelling in school, our 11-year-old daughter growing more brilliant by the day, and Emma and I navigating our demanding careers while still finding time for each other. Or so I thought. The first cracks appeared so subtly I almost missed them. Those intimate dinner conversations, gradually replaced by uncomfortable silences. The way Emma's eyes would light up at her phone instead of when I walked into the room. Small changes, easy to dismiss when you're convinced love will weather any storm. "It's just work," she'd say, smiling down at her screen while I folded the laundry she no longer helped with. Meanwhile, the distance between us on our couch grew wider than the physical inches separating us. I tried everything a loving husband could. Leaving work earlier, taking on more household responsibilities, planning surprise date nights. I'd stand in our kitchen after she'd gone to bed, staring at the two untouched glasses of wine I'd poured, trying to understand where I'd gone wrong. "Hey, can I borrow your laptop for a second?" I asked one evening, my phone dead from a long workday. "Sure," Emma replied without looking up from the TV. That casual moment changed everything. Her messenger was open, a conversation with someone named Marcus W. I hadn't meant to look, to invade her privacy, but something in those first few lines made my blood run cold. The familiarity between them, the inside jokes I wasn't part of, the way entire chunks of conversation seemed deliberately deleted, timestamps jumping forward hours at a time. My world stopped spinning. The next morning I took a day off work, not to spy, but to save our marriage. I fixed that cabinet door she'd been complaining about for months, repainted the hallway trim, organized the laundry room. Between tasks, I left handwritten notes around our home. "Thank you for building this life with me. I love the way you laugh when you're tired. You're still my favorite person." Simple truths that suddenly felt desperate on paper. All while Emma sat at our kitchen counter, smiling down at her phone, completely oblivious to my efforts, to my presence, to my pain. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Share your story below if you've experienced that hollowing ache of trying to be seen by someone whose eyes are fixed elsewhere. That afternoon, while searching for tools, I remembered her old phone in our junk drawer, the one she'd replaced months ago. My hands trembled as I powered it on, hoping it would tell me I was overreacting, that my darkest fears were just insecurities playing tricks on me. Instead, it confirmed every nightmare. Their conversation was there, unfolding in real time, synchronized across her devices. Emma and Marcus, laughing at me. "He's out there painting. He thinks he's winning me back," Emma typed. "Poor guy. Let him waste his time," Marcus replied. "You should see him trying to fix that cabinet. Like a sad little project for him." I couldn't breathe. My chest constricted as I scrolled through message after message. They mocked my appearance, my habits, even intimate things I'd only ever shared with Emma, vulnerabilities I'd trusted her to protect, not weaponize against me. "He gets so mopey when he's tired. Like a kicked puppy, it's pathetic. But he still thinks he's a stud in bed too, huh?" Oh God, don't even get me started. I had to stop reading. The room spun around me. Each heartbeat felt like glass shattering in my chest. These weren't just messages. This was emotional intimacy, the kind I thought was sacred between us. And as their conversation continued, I watched Emma deleting messages in real time, erasing evidence even as it appeared. I managed to capture screenshots before they disappeared, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. That night, I stayed in the garage long after Emma had gone to bed, nursing whiskey that couldn't burn away the betrayal searing through my veins. I couldn't face her. Not yet. Not without doing something I'd regret for the rest of my life. For 3 agonizing weeks, I lived a double life, going through motions at work, maintaining a hollow facade of normalcy at home, while secretly documenting every message between them. Night after night, I watched their relationship evolve from emotional betrayal to explicit desires. Plans they made in vivid detail. fantasies that stabbed through what remained of my heart. I can't wait to hold you again. I need you. I love you, Marcus wrote. I love you too. I can't wait to be with you, Emma responded. Seeing those words, I love you, in her handwriting to another man hollowed me out completely. Those 3 words that had once been our sacred promise, now casually offered to someone else. Then came their plans for a weekend together. She called it a spa weekend with the girls, while he arranged a business trip to our town. They would meet at an upscale resort just outside the city. I remember her face when she asked me about it. That forced casualness, the slight nervousness in her voice. Hey, she said lightly after dinner one night. The girls and I were thinking we could use a little break. A spa weekend. Just to decompress, you know? I wiped down the counter and nodded, keeping my voice steady despite the hurricane raging inside me. Sounds nice. You deserve it. Her face lit up with relief at how easily I'd accepted her lie. Yeah, she said, stepping closer, resting her arms around my waist in a gesture that once would have felt like coming home. And when I get back, we can really focus on rebuilding our relationship. The audacity of that moment still takes my breath away. Planning to rebuild our relationship after spending a weekend in another man's bed. The night she left, I received the first update from the private investigator I'd hired, photos of Emma and Marcus walking into the resort together. She wore the new dress she'd bought a week earlier, telling me it was just for fun. His hand rested on her lower back like she belonged to him. I drove to the resort myself that night, needing to see it with my own eyes. Sitting in my car in that parking lot, watching the lights in their room, I felt something inside me break permanently. Not just my heart, something deeper, more fundamental. The foundation of trust I'd built my entire life upon. If you've ever had your trust shattered beyond recognition, you understand that this isn't just emotional pain, it's physical. Every breath hurts, every heartbeat feels wrong. You become a stranger in your own skin. The updates continued throughout that weekend. Images of them dining together, walking hand in hand by the lake, carrying champagne to their room. Each one a dagger twisting in an already fatal wound. Then early Sunday morning, everything changed. The investigator called, instead of texting, his voice tight with urgency. There was a medical incident, he explained. The man, Marcus, suffered what appears to be a severe cardiac event. Paramedics performed CPR in the room. Your wife was hysterical. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we'd shared for years, trying to process this unexpected turn. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined, this wasn't one of them. Emma called me that afternoon, her voice broken and raw through her sobs. Something terrible happened, she choked out. My friend, he had a medical emergency last night. We had to call 911. It was so bad. My voice remained gentle as I responded, masking the complex emotions churning beneath. Of course. Take all the time you need. Are you okay? No, she whispered. Not really. It's been horrible. Later that night, Emma returned home looking shattered. Face blotchy, eyes hollow, clutching her purse against her chest like a shield. For weeks after, she moved through our house like a ghost, barely speaking, barely touching our children. She took extended leave from work, avoiding everything and everyone. I played my part perfectly, the supportive husband, concerned and patient, despite not knowing the full truth. Every sympathetic glance, every reassuring touch, masking my devastation, and the careful plans forming in my mind. A month into her misery, I suggested therapy. I think maybe you should talk to someone, I told her gently. A therapist, just to help you work through this unusual grief over your friend. I'd already spoken with the marriage counselor privately, explaining the situation. During our first session, the therapist created the perfect environment for truth. Soft questions, affirming nods, gentle guidance. Emma finally crumbled. I had an affair, she confessed, her voice trembling. He wasn't just a friend. We planned the weekend together. He took his medication and we were having sex. Then he suddenly started shaking. I watched him die. I couldn't save him. I performed shock and disbelief with absolute perfection. Hands clenched, jaw slack, eyes wide with horror. Inside I felt only cold determination. That was when I pulled out the folder I'd brought with me, screenshots of text conversations, photos from the investigator, all the evidence I'd gathered. I laid them carefully on the table between us. I knew everything, Emma, I said quietly. Every word, every plan, Every betrayal. Her face drained of color as she stared at the undeniable proof of her deception. I know about the weekend. About the resort. About him dying in your arms. About how you made fun of me. Tears spilled freely down her face. No, 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 please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please, don't do this. Don't take the kids away from me. I stared at her, unmoved by the desperation I once would have done anything to soothe. I'm offering you one option, I said, sliding divorce papers across the table. You'll move out. You'll have limited visitation with the children, and you'll pay support. She signed that afternoon, broken beyond resistance. The divorce was finalized quickly. I received primary custody of our children without contest. Emma moved to a small house in a neighboring city. Far enough to feel the distance every day, close enough to see what she'd lost. She sees the kids on alternating weekends. Always grateful, I didn't expose the full truth to everyone we knew. Life is different now, better in ways I never expected. Our house feels alive again, filled with movie nights and pancake breakfasts, and the new dog I always wanted. The kids have settled into our new normal with remarkable resilience. I've even started dating again, casually, thoughtfully, with a new appreciation for honesty and trust. Some evenings, after the kids are asleep and the house is quiet, I sit on the back porch and simply breathe. Long, deep breaths that feel like freedom. I survived the storm and emerged stronger, wiser, more complete. Emma still doesn't know everything about that weekend at the resort. No one does. There are some secrets I'll carry alone, like the night before she left, when I accessed Marcus's medical records through connections I'm not proud of. How I discovered his severe cardiovascular condition, high risk with certain medications. How his heart pills looked almost identical to Cialis. How resort security was practically non-existent. How easily I slipped into their room while they were out, making one simple switch that changed everything. The police investigated, of course. A man dying suddenly raises questions. But they found the evidence that made perfect sense. A middle-aged man taking sexual enhancement drugs to impress his younger lover, pushing his already compromised heart beyond its limits. A tragic accident. Nothing more. Do I regret it? That's between me and the silent night sky. All I know is that this peace I've found, this new life I've built for my children and myself, it didn't come free. I paid for it in full, and I intend to treasure every moment. Thank you for listening to my story, beautiful souls. If it resonated with you, please drop a line in the comments. How have you rebuilt after betrayal? What helped you find strength when your world collapsed? And if you want to hear more stories of love, loss, and redemption, make sure to subscribe and join our family. Remember, sometimes the deepest wounds lead us to our greatest healing. I'll be here again next week with another story that might just help you feel a little less alone.